Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's okay. No problem. I know that's new to everyone, right? So what we'll cover today, I had a conversation with Shelby and your leadership team about really that they would like to discuss the best practices for DocuSign. I've got some tips and tricks that will just save you some time when we're talking about DocuSign. So some best practices for that. So we'll actually dive in. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen and we will. Oh, it says that I'm not able to share my screen.
Let me make you the host then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Perfect. Yep, there we go. Thank you. All right, and then is everybody able to see my screen? If you can just give me like a thumbs up or something like that. Perfect, thank you so much. All right, so we all know that DocuSign starts directly from command. So we have to go into command first. We'd have to have the contact in command. We'd have to have created the opportunity in command. And then that's what's going to allow us to essentially open up the DocuSign room. So I want you to think of it as command is where I manage the transaction. I manage the client. I do compliance. I get paid. I do all of that. DocuSign is just the vehicle that we're using for the e-signatures. So it's really the platform that we're using to send documents, to have them signed, to have them initialed, and then to get them back. And we're then eventually going to get them back into command. So DocuSign is really, and in true form, the e-signature component that we're using easily through command. So once we go into command, we've created the opportunity, which I won't do that because you guys have a really clear understanding on that. All we're going to do is go into the Documents tab, and we're going to choose Go to Transaction, and we're going to choose DocuSign. And then that is going to open up a new tab for you where you'll be able to go into that DocuSign room. So if we think of rooms, I know a lot of you might have used Dotloop previously. In Dotloop, we called them loops. So in DocuSign, we're just calling them rooms. So it's the exact same thing, just a different terminology. A room is a transaction where a loop would have been a transaction in Dotloop. And so once we go into the room, what I believe is the easiest way for you to manage your transactions in the rooms is to just work left to right. And so you'll see when we first go into the DocuSign room, we'll have a details tab right up here. This is, again, if you were using Dotloop prior, we also had an edit details section there. And so if we remember in Dotloop, anything that we entered into the details right there, that automatically pulled into all of the documents in the loop in Dotloop. It does the exact same thing here in DocuSign. So we really want to make sure that we're not going into the Documents tab first, that we're starting at the Details tab, and that we're just adding every single thing that we know about this transaction. And so to do that, all we're going to do is click on the blue edit button at the top right. And then for time, I obviously won't fill everything out, but we'll just touch on some of the high points. So you just want to make sure that we're entering every single thing that you know about this transaction here. So we'll just do this as test lane. And then we'll do North Carolina. So we'll just come in here and enter some of the details here. If the listing date, we know that, we'll say we're working with a listing today, the listing expiration date, so we can push all of this out. So you'll see a calendar pops up really nice there. Then we can put the listing amount right here. And then we can continue down. Now, if I'm saying that I'm taking a listing, I'm probably not going to know any of the offer details yet. But if we switch this and we were working with a buyer and we did know the offer details, we knew all of those, we would enter all of that directly right here. So we're just going to continue down just to make sure there's nothing else that I want to add. I'll keep that all there. And then over on the right is where we need to make sure that we're spending some time and paying attention, because this is a really important part. So the way that DocuSign works is by you going in and entering whoever the sellers are, or the buyers, or yourself as the listing agent or the buyer's agent. By you just doing that, the system then knows every single place that a buyer or a seller needs to initial or sign the documents. So the number one thing that I hear sometimes from agents is, I sent the documents to my buyer or to my seller, and they can review the documents, but they're not able to sign them or initial them or do anything with them. And when we see that, we know that 9 times out of 10, they weren't entered in the role section here under the details. And then we didn't pick them as that role when we were sending them the documents, which we'll get to in just a moment. So it's important that we're just taking a moment here and we're making sure that their legal name of how they need to sign the document is indeed right here. The email address that we want to send it to is indeed right here. Now I'm just going to use one seller for the sake of time in this class, but if we had 2 sellers, we'd be able to enter seller number 2's information all down here. And then you'll see you will automatically show up as the listing agent or the buyer's agent, whichever role you're playing here. If we were also working with another listing agent, we could enter that here. And then if we were representing the buyer, this is where we would enter that. So again, on the left side of the details page is where we're really entering the details about the property itself. On the right side of the details page is where we're really entering the details about the people and their roles in the transaction. So just take maybe a minute or two and make sure that you're entering all of the details properly that you need to, because that's going to save you so much time by automatically flowing into all of the documents. So once we've entered all the details, we're good here. We don't need to add anything else. All we're going to do is just hit that save button at the bottom of the page. So while that's loading, Shelby, are there any questions from the room or anything to kind of speak into about details from anyone?
Not on this part yet.
Not currently.
Not currently. Okay, I'm just going to keep checking in with all of you. So let's move on. We're going to just continue to work left to right. So we'll go into the document section. And then this is where you can add documents to your room really easily. So details is where we filled out all the information. Documents is where we're going to pull in all the documents that we need for this particular transaction. Now I'm working out of a demo account. So you'll see when I go in, I'll have a bunch of different libraries. You will have the form sets that your Market Center has set up for you. I believe you've got the 3 different form sets there, as well as your library. So don't get confused by the mass amount of documents that I'll have. So when we go into documents, if we want to add new documents, all we're going to do is click on add. The first 2 options are probably the ones that you will use the most. So the first one is if you wanted to add documents from the computer. So if you had a PDF that another agent had sent you, or a PDF that you wanted to upload to get signatures or initials, we would use that, browse for the document from your computer and upload that really easily. We're going to use DocuSign forms today because we're actually going to go in and fill out some documents and send them for signatures. And if you haven't been into DocuSign in a while, you'll see that we actually have a new look when we go in here to add the documents, which is a lot more appealing. So over here on the left, you're going to have all of your group sets. And so these are probably the groups that your Market Center has created for you. And then you'd be able to go in and pick the documents that you need. And then down here, you'll have the libraries that you have availability to. So that might be your local state board or perhaps MLS that you have access to. So I'm just going to go in and pick just a couple documents real quick. We'll just pick maybe 1 or 2 for the sake of time. And so we will do just a little short sale, just an addendum for the sake of time. And then we'll do, let's do, I know we're working with a seller, but we'll just pick that one too. Now you'll see that when I picked this document, I get this drop down over here. We're going to talk about form templates in just a moment. So form templates are essentially documents that allow you to go in and say, okay, every single time that I use this document, I want this wording to be in this form. So if at any time, no matter what the transaction is, you're typing the same data on that form, you can go in and create a form template. And then anytime that you pull that document in, the system will ask you, do you want to use the form template for this? So essentially, I'll say yes for this. And then any wording that I've put in that form template will automatically be added. So if there's something that you're always adding in, like the additional terms or some sort of addendum, that the wording is always the same, no matter what the transaction is, we can create that very, very easily as a form template. And then when we're adding that document, the system is going to know that we have a form template for that document. And it's going to give you a drop down of, do you want to use this specific form template for that? So we will for this one, just to show you how that works. And then all we're going to do is click on the button that says add selected, and it's going to add those 2 forms into our room. So in the documents tab here is where we really want to do everything that we need to do or fill out in all of these forms before we're sending them to either the buyer or the seller for initials and for signatures. So best practice is to really just click on each document. Now remember that anything that we entered into details is automatically going to be pulled into the document. So we'll see a lot of that there. And then this is the area where you have the ability to come in here and type out anything that you need to. So we just picked this one addendum where it looks like we don't have anything that we need to fill in here. This will just be for them to sign. Everything has automatically been pulled in because I have the information in the details. So we can just come in here, take a look at that, make sure we're good. So we're just going to say save and close because we're not adding anything to that. So then we would go into the next document if we're sending both of these documents together. And again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to really fill out the 12 or 15 page contract, but we'll just take a look at it together and I'll show you the details that have automatically pulled in. Perfect. So again, I didn't enter buyers into the details. We are maybe potentially saying that we're taking a listing. So I just pulled in a weird document for that. But anything, if we were really representing the buyer, we needed to enter anything, we would be able to type all of that here. So this is where you're filling out the entire document. Now you'll see it pulled over the street address because I did enter that into details. I pulled in, we didn't do a listing price or a purchase price rather, which is why that's not in there. So we can come in here and we can fill in every single thing that we need to here. Escrow amount, whatever that might be, or whoever's holding it. So again, we can just go in, but this is where we want to make sure that we're doing all of the filling out of the documents. We don't want to do that in the envelope section. We want to make sure we're doing all of that here. So we would just continue to go down, make sure we go through page by page. Anything that we need to type in here, we'd be able to do that. This is where you're doing the actual preparing of the documents. Again, we can check any boxes, do anything that we need to here, and just continue to kind of move down that form. So take your time because this is where you're filling everything out prior to sending it to the buyer or the seller, whoever you're representing, for signatures as well as for initials. And so when we get down here to the very, very bottom, you'll see all of your information will be pulled in because we have that in there. And then down here, any additional information, we've got all of that. So once we've gone through here and we're saying, okay, we filled out the documents, we're ready to send them. We are ready for the sellers in this instance to sign all of the documents. We would just make sure that we save that. Make sure you're always saving anything that you're filling out. And then we'll walk through the envelope section. So Shelby, I'll stop there for a minute just to see if there's any sort of discussion around that or questions or best practices from anyone.
It'll probably be covered later what I'm gonna ask.
Okay. I think we're good to this.
We're good? Okay. Let me just, I'm going to turn my mic up just a little bit, or my speakers. Okay. So we've done the details. We've added the documents. Now we're ready to send them. There's a couple different ways that you can do this. I'll show you what I think is the easiest way to do it. If we decide which documents that we want to send. So let's say that I want to send both of these to the same person. We're just going to send both of these for initials and for signatures. What I believe is the easiest is if I just hover over each document, you'll see how at the top left, I start to get like kind of this little bubble. That's something that I can click on to select this document. So if I just hover over the document and then I click the little bubble right there, it checks that box. And I'm going to do it with this one too, because I want to use both of these. And then you'll see up here, I get this toolbar of everything that I can then do with the documents. So from here, I can copy these documents into another room. I can move them. So maybe I have another folder in this room and I want to move those documents to that. I can email them. So that's not emailing for signatures. That's just emailing a copy of the documents out. I can combine them. So a lot of times you might have where you downloaded a document and it split it or something like that, and you want it as one packet. We can really easily combine them this way. I can create an envelope, which is what we're going to do in just a moment. I can archive them. So if I realize I no longer need these documents, I don't want these in my room, but I don't want to permanently delete them, I can archive them. I think of that as moving it to the trash bin or the recycling bin on your desktop, where you can pull them out at any time or just kind of moving them away. I can also unarchive them. So once I've archived them, and I can delete them. So we have turned on this feature that you can delete documents. You can never undelete documents. So just a word to the wise, if you're needing to hold on to anything for compliance, or if you're needing to have, versions of that, just make sure that you're not deleting. Maybe you're archiving if you don't want to see them, because delete you cannot get back at any point. So I'm going to use this to actually create the envelope. It has the little pen on it because the envelope is what we're going to use to actually send these for signatures. So I'm going to choose create envelope. And then what you won't see is it's actually then just moving me over into the envelopes tab. So rather than me having to go into the envelope, choose create the envelope, it's actually doing all of that work for me when I just click the documents and choose create the envelope. Now here's a really big tip for you. You'll start to see that as you're using DocuSign and we're working out of this same DocuSign room, you'll find that you'll start to create a lot of envelopes. So I want you to think of envelopes almost as emails. When I'm sending documents for maybe a price change with a seller and I send that as a new document, I'm going to send that as a new envelope. So there might be a time when we're working in a transaction and we have 5 to 10 envelopes for that one transaction. And sometimes you want to be able to go back and say, okay, when did I send that document? What was that document? We need to know the details of it. It's going to be really difficult for you to understand that if all of your envelopes are named the same. So right here where it says envelope name and the envelope name is please DocuSign, I recommend changing that to just whatever you're sending. So I kind of think of this as if you were sending an email to someone, that's the subject line. So if we're kind of telling them like, here's what's in the envelope, here's what I need you to do with it, let's just name the envelope that. And so I might, if this is the original listing paperwork, maybe I'm sending this to my seller for them to sign it, I might just call this original listing paperwork. And then in 2 weeks, when we have some sort of addendum that we realize we didn't get signed, I would name that envelope whatever the addendum is, HOA addendum. When we have a price change later, I would name that envelope price change and maybe even what we're changing it to. So then at any time, if you have a transaction coordinator or if you're going in and looking at it, you have a clear understanding of which envelope you need to look at to maybe see when was that signed, when did I send that? So just a better understanding of that. The next section down here is where we can add documents to the envelope, but we've already done that because we added the 2 documents from the room. Now at this point, if you realize, oh, there are room documents that I didn't add, or I need to, or I need other documents, we can still pull them in at this point. We can also reorder the documents here. So for example, I have this as like the short sale addendum first, and maybe I actually want the second document right here to be the first document. I can just click on these and move them, and it changes the order in which they're going to be received, because your buyers or sellers or whoever you're sending these to are going to receive these as one email where they'll just continue to go down through each page. Then we're going to go in and add the recipients to the envelope. So this is, if you pay attention to anything today, this is probably the most important part. The number one thing that I hear is sometimes agents say, well, I sent it to my buyers or my sellers, and they are telling me that all that they can do is initial it, or I'm sorry, all that they can do is view it. They can't initial it, they can't sign it. Or sometimes when we get to the next page, I hear from agents, I don't like DocuSign because I have to drag and drop initials and signatures to every single document. You never have to do that on a DocuSign document if you are choosing to add the recipient here by their pre-tagged roles. So if we can go back a little bit, when we went into details, we added them as a buyer or a seller, in this instance, a seller. So under those details on the right, we added them as a seller. Because we did that, the option of pre-tagged roles comes up. So when I choose pre-tagged roles, it's going to ask me, okay, what role of person are you sending this to? So I'm going to say, okay, I'm sending this to one seller. And then who is that seller? And it's going to show me everybody that's in my room, which you will never have this many people, so don't worry about that. So we're going to choose, okay, I'm sending this to the seller and this is who the seller is, or I'm sending this to the buyer and this is who the buyer is, or whoever that role is. I'm just going to choose one for the sake of time. So we'll choose add selected, but that's a really key thing. We need to make sure that we're always picking pre-tagged roles. You never have to drop initials. You never have to add signatures. You never have to do anything like that. Down here, I can add a message to all of my recipients. So if I wanted to say, please sign these. So I just might write whatever I want to, whatever sort of message down there. And then let's say that I realize, oh, I need to do something else. I'm not quite ready to send this yet. I can save this right here. And you're basically saving this as a draft. So think of this as an email that you're saving as a draft that we're not quite sending. But we're going to say, nope, we're ready to move forward. I'm going to choose the next button, just the yellow button at the top. And then I think of this as kind of your last view of the documents before you're actually sending them. So this just gives us one final time to take a look at the documents, make sure that they're filled out the way that we need them to. You'll see all of the initials will be dropped in there. So I can't change anything here. This is not where I can type or do anything like that. All of that is done in the Documents tab. So if I scroll down, I see that I've got seller initials right here because I added them as that pre-tagged role. Now I just added one seller. If we had two sellers, you'd have another seller initial box right here for the second seller to sign. So again, this is just where we're going through, making sure everything is filled out. I won't really go through all of the pages. I'll just scroll really quickly and try not to make you all dizzy. Because when we get down, I do want to show you with initials, we're never going to have a date next to the initial. Now you could drop a date if you wanted to have that. I do want to show you with signatures, we're always going to have initials. So give me 1 second while we just get down to the signature field. Perfect. So you'll see on this document, we have the signature and the date signed is automatically going to be there. Now, if I needed to add in additional fields over here or drop anything in, this is where I could drop those in. But again, if you're using the pre-tagged roles, it knows everywhere that a buyer or seller or any other role needs to sign or initial, and that's going to automatically be done for you. So once we've had kind of one final look at all of the documents here, we're just going to choose right up here, the send button, and then that will give you a quick confirmation that your documents have been sent. And it will tell you that they're waiting for signatures for other. I sent it to myself, so it'll say that it's waiting for my signature. But that's where it'll have in the envelope waiting for others. You can come in here and do anything prior to them signing it. So if you need to make any changes or anything like that, as long as they haven't signed it, you can come in and make changes under the envelopes at that point. So Shelby, any questions from anyone around that or anything that you would like to add that you think maybe I didn't cover?
I have a quick question. I don't know. I think I know the answer to it.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was a workaround. So when a lot of times when you have several documents and you click pre-tag role, depending on that role, if it's spelled differently, so if it has seller with the number 1, if it has seller O-N-E, different things like that, it'll come up with a different pre-tag role for each document. And if you send it like that, it's going to send them separate emails. So it gets confusing. I know you can go in and change the color of some to make it all one, but I didn't know if there was an easier way, because I know I know we get the templates from somewhere, but I didn't know if it would be nice if when they did the templates for every seller one, it was the same thing, and for every listing it was the same thing.
So we can definitely, so we can actually reach out to the DocuSign. That would be like field mapping. And so if you want to maybe work with Shelby and give her a couple of examples of documents of where you're experiencing that the most, then Shelby, get with me. I can give you that link and we can submit that to DocuSign because they map the field. So they can be able to map it like appropriately for you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. No, thank you for letting me know. I would understand that would be difficult. Shelby, anything from the room in there?
Same thing, like on the buyer side, when you're representing the buyer, it'll call us a buyer agent on some of the KW documents. and a selling agent on some of the others, so it'll give us different roles to sign as, even though it's still the same person doing the signing, we'll get separate emails.
Okay, when you see that, just tell me what form it is, and I can get that fixed.
Okay.
Cydne, I have a question.
Yeah.
One of the questions I get a lot is, okay, well, I sent the envelope, but my person never received it in their email. What do you suggest they do when that happens?
Yeah. So number one would be to check spam and check junk, because sometimes it does end up there. If they're using a Gmail account, in Gmail, like personal accounts, not business accounts, they'll have 3 different sections, and one of them will be their primary email, one of them will be social, and one of them will be like promotions. We find that for some reason on some Gmail, DocuSign show up in promotions. So they just want to make sure that they're checking that as well. And then the 2 largest email addresses that have the largest firewall that don't allow emails to come in are going to be AOL, Yahoo, with Hotmail kind of being like a close third. So if they're using an AOL or a Yahoo, if they have another email address, if it's a work email address, or if they have another Gmail, we would want to try to look into that, because those are kind of the 2 biggest offenders as a whole. That's nothing to do with KW. It's just the firewall that they have for that.
Anything else, guys? Okay, I think we're good for now.
Good. Okay. Do you guys want to jump into maybe form templates?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's so cool. I can like hear you guys and kind of see you. I'm speaking to a nice room here. So let's go into form templates. So when we go into DocuSign rooms, if we click on the My Doc section at the top right, you'll see that's going to take you into, so we're probably used to hanging out in like the room section. Sometimes we take a look at the dashboard. We very rarely really go into the My Document section. So if we go into the My Document section, and then we have form templates right here as an option, we'll choose form templates. And so form templates are where, again, anything that you're entering that you find, gosh, I'm typing this into the same document every single time, no matter what's happening in the transaction. So we would not want to put in things that are transaction specific, such as price, address, buyer, seller information. But if there's ever anything that you're saying, like in this additional terms, I always want this to be written out, or in this one section, I always want this to be written out, no matter what the transaction is, it might be really beneficial for you to create a form template around that. So we can come in here to form templates. If you've never created a form template, you just won't have any listed here yet. We can very easily choose create form template right up here. And then this is where we would just pick essentially what form do we want to create the template from. So I will pick one of these. And then let me just find something. We'll just pick this first one. So you'll pick whatever document you want to actually create the template for. And then you'll be able to come in and type whatever is always going to be the same in every single transaction. Now, even though we've created a form template, you can override that at any time. So what I mean by that is maybe you're pulling in the form template for this DocuSign room, but you find, okay, for this one, I actually don't want that language on the document. You can get rid of it at any time. So it's never a locked text field or anything that you can't change. So we would come in here. And so let's say that, let me just find a section right down here. Okay, so I know that this is not going to be the same. I know that this is going to change every time, but I'm just going to use this as an example. So we'll just say example here of template language. So wherever it is you want to save this, we would just come right in here, fill out whatever we always want to have in the template. And then what's nice is we can rename this template. So the name of this template right now is exclusive right to sell listing agreement revised 5/2020 template. If I want to change that, I can come up here, just click on the pencil. And so if I say, this is my new construction addendum 2021, whatever you want to kind of remember what this template is, we can rename that. then we would just click the green checkbox, and then we've renamed that template. Then we would just make sure we hit save and close. And then anytime that you pull this specific document in, you're going to have a drop down of the template. Now, let's say I have one document and I want multiple templates because I say, okay, when I'm working in this area, I want to have this wording, or when I have this, I want to have that wording. You can do that. So I could pull in the same form, create a new version of that where I write whatever I want for that specific version. And I would just name that whatever that form template is. And then you noticed earlier when I pulled the documents into the room, I have a drop down right there of what type of template do I want to apply to that document. If at any time you find I use the wrong form for the template, or I want to change something, you can come into the form templates. I can come right over here under actions, and I can either edit the template. If I want to just come in there and edit it, I can click right on it. I can copy that template. So if I want to create a newer version of the template, but just make some changes, or I can delete it entirely if I find I don't need that anymore. And as you start to maybe have a lot of form templates that you're using, you can come up here and sort them by the template name or by when they were recently updated or oldest. So as you start to have more there, you can come in and filter by that at any time. And then again, when you're adding the documents into the room is where you'll have that drop down if you add a document that has a template applied, and you'll be able to decide if you really want to use that form template or not. So again, you can make any changes to it in the room as well. So if you find for this transaction, I don't need that wording, you can do that also. So again, for this, we just went into My Docs and then into form templates, and then you can create any form templates that you want. Shelby, do we have some people in the room that maybe would want, like, do we have any teams or admins or people that would want shared rooms access?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me go into that because that's a really nice new feature as well. So I'm just going to go back into my rooms real quick, and we'll just pick a room that I was just in. So you've got a couple different options with this. So for this, we're actually going to go into the people section in the room. So all I did was just go back into an existing room that I had already created, just to show you exactly how this works. So I've got the people tab right up here, and this is going to show me all the people that are associated with this room. You will never have this many people. I'm just out of multiple market centers, so I'll have a lot of people. So you'll see that when you are looking at the room, it'll show that you're the agent owner of the room. So let's say that you have someone that you want to give rooms access to for either this one transaction or for all of your transactions. Now, the only thing that has to happen to make that happen is they have to have a Keller Williams DocuSign Rooms account. So this can't be like a virtual assistant that doesn't have a DocuSign Rooms account, but a lot of times we find that transaction coordinators or admins are actually in what we call the KW Winmore system, just as a different type of status. So as long as they have a DocuSign Rooms account, you have the ability to invite them in with these permissions. So let's say that you run a team and you want every single member of your team to have access to every single room. Just make sure you want those permissions before you do it. Or let's say that you run a team and you want this person to have access to this room for whatever. Or let's say that you are a solo agent and you have a transaction coordinator that manages your transactions, and he or she does have a DocuSign Rooms account with Keller Williams, and you want them to have access. The other thing is, let's say that you go on vacation and you have 3 or 4 buyers that you're working with, and you have a trusted agent that's out of the market center that's going to be managing your files for a referral fee, and you want them to have access only to these set number of rooms. So no new rooms after you come back from vacation, no previous rooms, just this kind of set of rooms here. We can do all of those things. So the first thing that we have to do is go into the people section, and we're going to invite someone by just clicking on the blue button at the top right. Now it has to be their email address that's associated with their DocuSign rooms account through Keller Williams. So we just need to make sure that we know what that email address is. So we can come in here and just type out that email. So we'll choose that person. They'll have their name right here. For the transaction side, we can say either the list side, the buy side, or both. They're really going to have access to all of the documents, so that doesn't really matter. And then you'll see we can give them a room role. So agent owner is what then allows them to have access to this room just as you do. So they are essentially able to add documents on your behalf. They're able to edit documents. They're able to send documents. They really have the same access level that you would have. Now, this didn't pop up. Let me just take this email out real quick. So you'll see down here, the room role doesn't show up until I've entered the email address, because it's verifying that this is an email address that has a Keller Williams DocuSign for Rooms account. So we'll just add this again. And then the room role, we're going to give them agent owner. And then we can click invite. And then that's going to send them an invite into this room. Now you'll see when I look at the people section here, I now see that I have this person and they have a little green banner next to them that says forms access. So this allows them essentially to have access to all of the documents, to add them, to fill them out, to edit them, to send them, anything through this room. I've got 3 little buttons right here, 3 little dots that I can click on. And it gives me the ability to change the form access. So if I click on that, I have a couple different options. Do I want them to have access to any room? Do I want them to have access to only this room? Or did I realize that I turned on forms access for the wrong person, or I no longer want them to have access? I can then choose no access and choose save. So this is where you can determine kind of the different access levels that you'd like to. So maybe you have someone that is helping you with your business while you're on vacation. You give them form access the time that you're on vacation. You can then come back in here and turn that access off. Maybe you're using a transaction coordinator, you give them forms access, and then you decide to use someone different or they move on. You can come in here and turn that off at any time. So this allows you to really manage who has access to this for all that. So again, that's just under the people section. And then we can come in here, make any changes, and then you'll see that forms access has then completely moved away from that. Shelby, any questions from anyone on that, or thoughts or discussion?
I think we're good.
Okay. Has anybody used that before in the room? No? Yeah, it's a really nice new feature. So they're definitely listening to you guys about what you need. Okay, so let's go in. Oh, we've got a little bit of time left. Okay, has anybody ever automatically emailed a document into a room? Does anybody know how to do that? Are you familiar with that? Sharon has. Yes, no? Okay. So we'll go through it just in case you guys haven't. So give me 1 second. Let me just pull my email up so I actually have something that I can email in. All right, so let me go into my rooms. We'll pick a room real quick. So I know with the market the way it is now, time is of the essence a lot. And so you might get an offer from another agent. Maybe they've emailed it to you as a PDF, and we want to really quickly get that into the room. Maybe you're like doing that on your computer, or I'm sorry, on your phone, and then we can go back to the office and really look at the document. So this is something that can really help you save some time and also not have to download, then upload, like just kind of less steps for all of you. So the first thing that we need to know to be able to do this is we're going to do just a little bit of work behind the scenes, and you just have to do this once. So the first thing that we need to know is what's our DocuSign email address, because all of you have one, whether you've ever used it or not. So for us to find that out, when we're in our DocuSign account, we're just going to click on, it might have your initials up here, or it might have your actual photo. And so we're going to come in there and we're going to go into preferences. So we're just going to click on your name and then we're going to go into preferences. That's going to be where your profile is, contact information, all of those different things. But what we're going to take a look at is over here on the left, you're going to have inbox details. And so by default, you're going to have a DocuSign email address. Now you can change anything in the front of it. So if this is something that you don't want to use, you can change that. The end of it will just always be at mail.docusign.net. But all of this can be changed. So if you just want to remember it and you want to make it the same as your KW email or whatever email you use for your work, you can absolutely do that. So you can make those changes here if you would like to. Otherwise, we just need to save this. I just saved it as a contact in my email so that I can really easily forward that email in. So again, to do that, we just clicked on our photo or our name at the top right. We went into preferences and then we went over here to inbox details, and that allows us to see the email address associated with our account. Once we know that, we're going to go back into the room, and you'll see that every single DocuSign room has its own unique ID number. And we're going to just make sure that we have that. So give me 1 second while I just pull up the room. Perfect. So you'll see that the ID of this room is pound or hashtag, whatever you'd like to say it, 5357932. And if I hover over that, it even tells me copy and paste this room ID number into your email subject in order to send documents into this room. So I can actually just come right up here, oops, and I'm gonna copy this right here. So we're just gonna copy that. Then I'm gonna come over here to my email, and I'm going to find something that has an attachment. Let me see, I might not have anything. So give me 1 second, I'll just create a new email. So if I had the email in my inbox, I could just forward it, but I'm going to actually, in the subject, we're just going to paste the room ID number. The recipient is going to be myself. So I have that saved right here. And then I'll just pull in a document. Again, if you were forwarding it, the only thing that we would have to change would be that email subject. We just have to make that something different. So we'll just choose this PDF here. So we're going to send it to my DocuSign email address. The subject is going to be the room ID number with the pound or hashtag in front of it. And then whatever PDF or multiple PDFs that I want to send in. And then we're just going to choose send. Give that just a moment and it'll show up in the room. Now, because we added the room ID as the subject, that allows that document to automatically come into this specific room. Let's say that you had documents that you just needed forwarded into DocuSign and you didn't know the room ID. Maybe you were out in the field or you were doing something or you just didn't have a chance and you're like, I just want to get them into DocuSign and then I'll get them into the right room. If you email anything without the subject, it will automatically show up in your inbox. So if I just email something, if I forward something or email something using my DocuSign email, if I forward it to that, it will show up. You have an inbox in DocuSign. And then at that point, you could move that into a specific room as well. But again, by adding the room ID is what then gets it automatically into that room. So give me 1 second. And we'll go back into the room. Sometimes we just have to do a little refresh to see the documents. So what I sent was a seller lead sheet. It's just a PDF. So we'll go back into the documents in that room and see what we've got there. Perfect. So we've got that PDF into the room automatically. So again, if you're getting offers or anything that you want to just easily email into the room, and then by the time you actually log in, it would be there and you'd be able to review it or do whatever you need, you can do that. The other really great tip that I love with emails is, do you guys ever have a conversation maybe through email with buyers or sellers or other agents, and you want to just have documentation of that conversation. So it might be an email exchange back and forth with your consumers, or it might be with the other agent. And we just want to make sure that we have all of that together. So we'll just choose, this is just a email that I have. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this email, we're going to forward it. And then I have to change the subject. So I'm just going to choose edit subject. And then I'm going to paste that. And then I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to do pound or hashtag PDF. So imagine that you have email correspondence between you and someone else, and you want to save that and you want that as documentation in the room. All I'm going to do is take that, add that room number, forward it to my DocuSign. And then this is where I just have to make sure that I've entered that hashtag PDF or pound sign PDF, that I have that there. And then we're going to hit send. And then we'll give that just a moment as well. By you putting that hashtag or pound PDF, what the system then does is it understands that that document, it's going to basically save that as a PDF. So everything in that email documentation, let me just refresh this room real quick. Sometimes this one takes just a tiny bit longer to pull in. So we'll see if it's immediately there. Yeah, so we'll give it just another minute or so. So essentially any sort of correspondence that you've had with buyers or with sellers or anybody, if you want to remember all of that and have all of that, you'll be able to pull that in. We can also, let's say you had this document, this document or this document, you wanted to combine them. Just as a reminder, if we're hovering over the document, we can click on them at any time and we'll see that tooltip to be able to do all of that. And then another thing that I really like, because you'll start to see that you'll have a bunch of different folders here, is I have the ability to come right up here under actions and add a folder. So maybe I want to add a folder that's my executed documents once they're actually signed. I can do that, and then I can move them into any folder that I want. So that refreshed the room for us. So you'll see now we have this right here, message from Cydne Seymour. We could rename that if we wanted to, but this is essentially, if I just pull that up, it's created a PDF version of my full email correspondence automatically added to that room. So all you have to do is just forward that into this room, make sure you add the hashtag or pound PDF, and it saves that entire conversation as a PDF automatically in the room for you.
That pound PDF, is that immediately at the end of the number? Do you space and then pound PDF? Or?
When you're doing the pound PDF, do you put a space in between? You have to put a space.
Yeah, put a space. And if you had actually put like correspondence, like a hashtag PDF and then space correspondence, it would have named this as correspondence. So if you actually put like a name there, it'll rename the document. I can rename it at any time, but yes, just put a space in between the two.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Final thing that I just want to show you guys is actually in command. And so this is a new feature that they rolled out. So imagine that we've done everything in DocuSign. We've got the initials, we've got the signatures, we've got everything. And now we're ready to submit that to the Market Center for review. A couple new features just to make sure you're aware of. So originally we had to go in and say, okay, this is this document. This is this document. We had to really go in one by one to be able to attach the documents. You now have the ability to choose attach multiple files. And then if I choose DocuSign, it automatically knows what room this is associated with in DocuSign. And so then I can come through and say, this is this document, this is this document, whatever it is. What you'll also see is they've created a new, really nice new feature here. So right here, it says room docs, because those are the documents in the room. If any of these were actually signed documents, I'd have another folder that would say signed documents. And so I would automatically know which documents had been signed and which documents had not. I actually have an example. So let me pull in so I can actually show you guys exactly what that looks like. So I'll just go into another opportunity, go into my documents, and then choose attach multiple files, DocuSign, because that's where I want to pull them in from. And then you'll see that once I go to the drop down, I've got my room docs, and then I've got my signed documents. So if it's an e-signature document that's been signed, it will always be named /signed at the end. And so the system will know automatically which documents have been signed. So I know sometimes we have just a lot of documents in the room and we don't really know, okay, which one do I really need to be uploading? Which one is the correct one? So they've automatically gone in and it can basically determine which documents have been signed. And so then you can know that you're picking the right one to actually submit to the Market Center for review for that. So that's a new feature. It's about 2 or 3 weeks old that will hopefully save you a lot of time with that as well. So again, that's just under the attach multiple files, and then the signed documents will automatically display under that different folder for you as well. I'm just making sure chat, we're all good with that. Okay, so I'll actually just stop really quickly. And then Shelby, any questions from anybody in the room or anyone on Zoom, any questions or anything that I didn't cover that you would like me to in the time we have left?
Yes. What if you have an old school client that doesn't have an email and doesn't do electronic signature? And we go to them and do a pen and ink signing. I know in Dotloop, we could just scan our documents and email it into Dotloop.
So they would physically sign it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And then
Yes.
we and upload it. Would we email it into that, our DocuSign email that you mentioned?
So you'd have to get it somehow electronic. It's the same thing as you would do it in Dotloop. So if you did it in Dotloop and you had it physically, how did you then get it into Dotloop?
And then emailed it to my Dotloop email.
Same thing. Yep. So you could scan it and email it to DocuSign. You could scan it to yourself and then upload it from your computer. So either way that you prefer.
There's no secret shortcuts to any of that, just same old way.
Yeah, because if it's physical, we have to get it electronic somehow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Any other questions from anyone, Shelby?
I think everybody in here is good.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, and it's just general information. So whenever you do your rooms, and at the bottom of, and you pull up your room screen, at the bottom of the room, you have the initials. Normally you have your initials at the bottom right hand of every room when you click on the room. How come, is there a reason why sometimes you have different initials up there?
Let me take a look so I can make sure I'm seeing what you, give me 1 second.
You pull up your room screen where all your rooms are at.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me just reshare.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, you got OS on all of yours. And sometimes I have KW on mine. Sometimes I have my initials on it. So I don't understand why it would change from time to time.
Yeah, so that's just essentially the owner of the room. So generally the Market Center is the owner of every room. You're the agent owner of the room. And so that's probably going to be the initials of the account that it was created under for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it plays no part in anything. It's just that when you go into each room, you'll notice that your MCA is probably automatically on there. It's because it's basically a service agreement through the Market Center. So those are just the Market Center initials.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question though. Anyone else? Any questions or anything we didn't cover? We're good. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Shelby, thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, Cydne.
Yeah, you guys have a great day. It's nice to see all of you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.